Amara Johnson walked into her music classroom on Monday morning with her right arm wrapped in a bright purple cast. The cast went from her wrist all the way up to her elbow. She had picked purple because it was her favorite color. But now she wished she had chosen something that wouldn't stand out so much. Every student who passed her in the hallway had stared at it. Some had asked what happened. Others had just pointed and whispered to their friends. She took her usual seat in the third row, right in the middle of the classroom. Her best friend Jessica sat down next to her and touched the cast gently. "Does it still hurt?" Jessica asked with concern in her voice. Amara shook her head. "Not really. Just feels heavy and weird. I can't bend my arm at all." "How did it happen again?" asked Marcus, the boy who sat behind them. Amara sighed. She had already told this story about 20 times since Friday. "I was playing basketball during practice. I went up for a layup and someone crashed into me from the side. I fell on my arm wrong and heard this really bad crack. Coach said I screamed so loud that people in the other gym heard me." Jessica winced. "That sounds horrible." "The hospital said it's broken in 2 places," Amara continued. "I have to wear this cast for at least 6 weeks. Maybe longer." Marcus leaned forward. "But what about the talent show? Aren't you supposed to play piano?" Amara's stomach twisted into a tight knot. She had been trying not to think about the talent show. She had been practicing her piano piece for 3 whole months. It was a beautiful song and she had almost mastered it. The talent show was only 6 weeks away. 6 weeks was exactly how long she had to wear the cast. Even if the cast came off in time, her arm would probably be too weak to play. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I'm still thinking about what to do." Before anyone could say more, Mrs. Henderson walked into the classroom. She was a tall white woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had been teaching music at Lincoln Middle School for over 20 years. Some students liked her, but many were afraid of her. She had a sharp voice and didn't accept excuses. She also had favorites, and everyone knew who they were. Amara had never been one of the favorites. Mrs. Henderson set her bag down on her desk and looked around the room. Her eyes landed on Amara, or more specifically on Amara's bright purple cast. Her eyebrows went up. "Well, well," Mrs. Henderson said in a loud voice that made everyone stop talking. "What do we have here? Miss Johnson, did you have a little accident?" Amara felt her face get hot. She didn't like the way Mrs. Henderson said "little accident" like it was funny. "Yes, ma'am. I broke my arm playing basketball." Mrs. Henderson walked closer to Amara's desk. She stood there looking down at the cast with her arms crossed. "Basketball," she repeated, shaking her head. "You know, Miss Johnson, I've always said that students who are serious about music should be more careful with their bodies. A pianist's hands are their most valuable tools. You can't just throw yourself around on a basketball court and expect nothing to happen." Amara felt her cheeks burn hotter. "It was an accident," she said softly. "Someone ran into me." "An accident that could have been avoided," Mrs. Henderson said. "If you had been at home practicing your piano instead of running around a gym, you wouldn't be in this situation, would you?" Several students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Jessica reached over and squeezed Amara's good hand under the desk. Mrs. Henderson turned and walked back to the front of the classroom. "Class, let this be a lesson to all of you. If you want to be serious musicians, you have to make sacrifices. You can't do everything. You have to choose what's important." She picked up her attendance sheet and started calling names. When she got to Amara's name, she paused. "Amara Johnson. I suppose you'll be sitting out this semester, won't you? With that cast, you can't participate in any of our class performances or the spring concert." Amara's heart sank. She loved music class, even if she didn't love Mrs. Henderson. "I can still sing," she said. "And I can still learn music theory and listen to the lessons." Mrs. Henderson made a dismissive sound. "Well, yes, I suppose you can sit and watch everyone else. How exciting for you." Some of the students laughed nervously. Amara felt tears start to sting her eyes, but she blinked them away. She wouldn't cry in front of everyone. The class moved on to the day's lesson, which was about different musical periods in history. Mrs. Henderson talked about Baroque music and played recordings of pieces by Bach and Handel. Amara tried to focus, but she kept thinking about her piano piece and the talent show. She had worked so hard on that song. It wasn't fair that one accident had ruined everything. When the class was almost over, Mrs. Henderson started talking about the upcoming talent show. "Auditions are in 2 weeks," she said. "Anyone who wants to perform needs to sign up outside the main office. Remember, this is Lincoln Middle School's biggest event of the spring. We want to show the parents and community what our students can do. This is not the time for mediocre performances or half-prepared acts. She looked directly at Amara when she said mediocre performances. Amara felt like Mrs. Henderson was sending her a message, but Amara raised her good hand anyway. Mrs. Henderson looked surprised and slightly annoyed. "Yes, Miss Johnson? I still want to perform in the talent show," Amara said. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted, but at least it didn't shake. Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows went up again. "You still want to perform? How exactly do you plan to do that with one arm in a cast?" "I don't know yet," Amara admitted. "But I'll figure something out. Maybe I can play something with just my left hand, or maybe my cast will be off in time." Mrs. Henderson actually laughed. It was a cold sound that made Amara's stomach hurt. "Play with one hand?" "Miss Johnson, piano is not a one-handed instrument, and even if your cast comes off in exactly 6 weeks, your arm will be weak and stiff. You won't have time to get back to your previous skill level before the talent show." "But I'm going to save you from yourself," Mrs. Henderson interrupted. "I strongly suggest that you sit this one out. Let students who are actually capable of performing take the spotlight. There's no shame in knowing your limitations." The way she said actually capable made Amara feel small. It wasn't just about her broken arm. There was something else in Mrs. Henderson's voice, something that made Amara feel like Mrs. Henderson didn't think she belonged on that stage at all. "People like you always want to reach beyond what you can actually do," Mrs. Henderson continued. "It's admirable in a way, I suppose, but it usually just leads to embarrassment, and I don't want you embarrassing yourself, or worse, embarrassing our school's music program. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Amara understood exactly what Mrs. Henderson was saying, even if the other students didn't. She had heard that tone before from other teachers, from people at the store, from parents of kids in her neighborhood who looked at her and her family a certain way. "People like you?" It was never really about the music or the broken arm. It was about something deeper, something that made Amara feel angry and hurt at the same time. "I understand," Amara said quietly, but inside she was thinking something else. Inside she was thinking that she would find a way to perform in that talent show no matter what Mrs. Henderson said. The bell rang, and students started packing up their things. Jessica waited for Amara by the door. "That was so unfair," Jessica whispered as they walked into the hallway. "She was being mean on purpose." "I know," Amara said. "Are you really going to try to perform anyway?" Amara looked down at her purple cast. "I have to. I can't let her win. I can't let her think she's right about me." Jessica nodded. "Then I'll help you however I can. We'll figure something out together." The rest of the school day dragged by slowly. Amara had a hard time focusing in her other classes. She kept replaying Mrs. Henderson's words in her head. "People like you. Actually capable. Embarrassing our school's music program." Each phrase stung like a bee sting that wouldn't stop hurting. When she got home that afternoon, the house was empty. Her mom worked as a nurse at the hospital and wouldn't be home until late. Her little brother Jamal was at an after-school program. Amara dropped her backpack by the door and went straight to the living room, where their old upright piano stood against the wall. The piano had been her grandmother's. It wasn't fancy or expensive, but Amara loved it. She sat down on the bench and stared at the keys. She lifted her left hand and placed it on the keys. With just her left hand, she played a simple scale up and down. It sounded lonely with only one hand. Then she tried to play part of her talent show piece with just her left hand. It sounded wrong and incomplete. The right hand was supposed to carry the melody while the left hand played the bass notes and chords. Without both hands working together, it was like listening to only half a conversation. Amara felt the tears she had been holding back all day finally start to fall. She put her head down on the piano keys, making a discordant sound that matched exactly how she felt inside. It wasn't fair. None of this was fair. She sat there crying for a while, letting all the frustration and hurt pour out. When she finally stopped, she felt a little bit better, but also very tired. She wiped her eyes and looked at the piano keys again. Her left hand was still resting on them. Her mom's voice suddenly echoed in her memory. It was something her mom said all the time, especially when things were hard. "They can doubt you, but they can't stop you unless you stop yourself." Amara took a deep breath. She wasn't going to stop herself. Mrs. Henderson could doubt her all she wanted. Mrs. Henderson could make mean comments and laugh at her ideas. But Mrs. Henderson couldn't actually stop her from trying. Amara opened the piano bench and pulled out her sheet music. She found the piece she had been learning for the talent show. It was a modern arrangement of a classical melody, and it was beautiful. She looked at the notes for a long time, studying where the left hand and right hand parts were written. Then she had an idea. What if there was music written specifically for one hand? It seemed impossible, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe other pianists had broken their arms or hands before. Maybe some pianists only had one arm their whole lives. There had to be music for them, right? Amara closed the piano and went to get her laptop. She carried it back to the piano and opened it on top of the closed lid. She typed into the search bar, "Piano music for one hand." What she found amazed her. There were hundreds of search results. There were videos of pianists playing beautiful, complicated pieces with just one hand. There were websites listing compositions written specifically for the left hand alone or the right hand alone. There were stories of famous pianists who had lost the use of one hand and continued their careers. Amara clicked on a video of someone playing something called Piano Concerto for the left hand by a composer named Ravel. She watched in amazement as the pianist's left hand flew across the keyboard, playing notes that sounded like they came from two hands instead of one. The music was powerful and emotional. It made Amara's heart beat faster. She watched video after video, reading about a pianist named Paul Wittgenstein who lost his right arm in World War I. After the war, he didn't give up music. Instead, he asked famous composers to write pieces for his left hand alone. Those pieces became some of the most famous one-handed piano music in the world. Amara felt something growing inside her chest. It was hope, mixed with excitement, mixed with determination. This was what she would do. She would learn to play a one-handed piece for the talent show. She would show Mrs. Henderson that people like her could do extraordinary things. She would prove that a broken arm wasn't a limitation. It was just a different challenge. When her mom came home from work around 8 o'clock that night, she found Amara still at the piano. Amara's laptop was open with dozens of tabs about one-handed piano music. Her left hand was moving up and down the keyboard, practicing scales and exercises. "Baby, what are you doing?" her mom asked, setting down her purse and bag. Amara turned around on the piano bench. Her eyes were bright with determination. "Mom, can I talk to you about something?" Her mom sat down on the couch looking tired but interested. "Of course. What's going on?" Amara told her everything. She told her about Mrs. Henderson's comments in class, about the way the teacher had laughed at her idea of performing, about the things Mrs. Henderson had said that weren't really about music at all. She told her about finding the one-handed piano music and about Paul Wittgenstein and all the other pianists who had played with one hand. "I want to learn one of these pieces for the talent show," Amara said. "I know it will be really hard. I know Mrs. Henderson doesn't think I can do it. But I have to try, Mom. I have to show her that she's wrong about me." Her mom was quiet for a moment. Then she got up and came to sit next to Amara on the piano bench. She put her arm around Amara's shoulders. "Baby, I'm sorry Mrs. Henderson treated you that way today," her mom said. "Some people carry ugly things in their hearts, and sometimes that ugliness comes out in how they treat others. That's not about you. That's about them." "I know," Amara said, "but I still want to prove her wrong." Her mom smiled. "Then we'll prove her wrong. But not because we need her approval. We'll do it because you have a gift and no one has the right to make you hide that gift or feel ashamed of it. You understand?" Amara nodded. "Remember what I always tell you," her mom said. "They can doubt you, but they can't stop you." Amara recited. "That's right. They can't stop you unless you stop yourself. So don't stop yourself. If you want to learn this one-handed piano music, then we'll figure out how to make it happen." Amara hugged her mom tight. For the first time since breaking her arm, she felt like maybe everything would be okay. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be possible. That night, after her mom went to bed, Amara stayed up late researching. She made a list of one-handed pieces that were beautiful, but maybe not too difficult for a 12-year-old to learn in 6 weeks. She watched more videos, studying how the pianists moved their hands and created such full sounds with only 5 fingers. The piece by Ravel kept calling to her. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever heard. It was also probably the most difficult, but something about it felt right. It felt like the kind of piece that could change everything. Before she closed her laptop and went to bed, Amara did one more thing. She found the sign-up sheet information for the talent show auditions. In 2 weeks, she would need to audition in front of Mrs. Henderson and 2 other teachers. She would need to show them she was serious. Amara opened a new document and typed her name. Under Act Description, she typed, Piano Performance, Ravel's Piano Concerto for the Left-Hand Arrangement. She saved the document. Tomorrow she would print it out and turn it in. Tomorrow she would start learning the piece. Tomorrow she would begin proving that Mrs. Henderson was wrong about everything. As Amara finally climbed into bed, she felt scared, but also excited. She didn't know if she could actually learn such a difficult piece in 6 weeks. She didn't know if her left hand would be strong enough or fast enough. She didn't know what Mrs. Henderson would say or do when she found out Amara was going through with the performance. But she knew one thing for certain. She was going to try, and sometimes trying was the bravest thing a person could do. The next morning, Amara woke up early. She had barely slept, thinking about the one-handed piano piece and everything she needed to do. She got dressed quickly and printed out her talent show application before her mom could drive her to school. In the car, her mom looked at her with concern. You sure about this, baby? It's going to be a lot of work on top of your regular schoolwork. I'm sure, Amara said, holding the application paper in her good hand. I have to do this, her mom nodded. Then I'm proud of you. Just remember, you don't have anything to prove to people like Mrs. Henderson. You only need to prove things to yourself. But Amara did feel like she had something to prove. Every time she thought about Mrs. Henderson's laugh and her words about people like you, Amara felt a fire burning in her chest. That fire would keep her going even when things got hard. When she got to school, Amara went straight to the main office. There was a clipboard hanging on the wall outside with a sign that said Talent Show Sign-Ups. About 10 names were already written on the list. Amara recognized most of them. There was Brandon Chen, who always won the science fair. There was Maria Gonzalez, who had an amazing singing voice. There was the Davis twins, who did magic tricks. Amara took the pen attached to the clipboard and wrote her name carefully. Under performance type, she wrote piano. Under song act title, she wrote Piano Concerto for the Left Hand by Ravel, excerpt. Her handwriting looked shaky, but the words were clear enough. She heard footsteps behind her and turned around. Mrs. Henderson was walking down the hallway with a coffee mug in her hand. She saw Amara at the clipboard and walked over. Signing up for something, Miss Johnson? Mrs. Henderson asked, looking at the clipboard over Amara's shoulder. Her face changed when she read what Amara had written. Her lips pressed together in a thin line. A Ravel piano concerto? Mrs. Henderson said slowly. You do realize that's a professional-level piece, don't you? Even the simplified arrangements are extremely difficult. I know, Amara said, trying to keep her voice steady, but I'm going to try my best. Mrs. Henderson set her coffee mug down on the office counter. She crossed her arms and looked at Amara with an expression that was hard to read. It might have been concern, but it looked more like annoyance. Miss Johnson, I'm going to be very direct with you because I think you need to hear this. You are setting yourself up for failure and humiliation. Learning that piece properly takes months, even years of practice with 2 hands. You have 6 weeks and only 1 working hand. This is not realistic. This is not brave. This is foolish. Other students were starting to arrive at school. Some of them slowed down as they walked past, sensing tension in the air. Amara felt her face getting hot again, but this time it wasn't from embarrassment. It was from anger. Maybe it is foolish, Amara said quietly, but it's my choice to make. Not entirely, Mrs. Henderson said. I'm one of the judges for the auditions. If I don't think your act meets our standards, I can reject it. And I'm telling you right now that I will not let you embarrass yourself in this school with a half-prepared performance of a piece you have no business attempting. Jessica appeared at Amara's side, her backpack slung over one shoulder. Mrs. Henderson, I think Amara should at least get a chance to audition. That's only fair. Mrs. Henderson turned her cold gaze to Jessica. Miss Parker, this doesn't concern you. I suggest you get to your homeroom before the bell rings. But now, Miss Parker. Jessica looked at Amara, squeezed her hand quickly, and walked away. Amara stood alone facing Mrs. Henderson, feeling small but refusing to back down. I'm going to audition, Amara said. You can judge my performance then. Mrs. Henderson picked up her coffee mug. Very well, but don't say I didn't warn you. She walked away down the hallway, her shoes clicking loudly on the tile floor. Amara stood there for a moment, her heart pounding. Her broken arm suddenly felt very heavy. Maybe Mrs. Henderson was right. Maybe this was foolish. The Ravel piece was incredibly difficult. She had only found it yesterday. She didn't even have sheet music for it yet. But then she remembered something her grandmother used to say before she died. Her grandmother had been a strong woman who had lived through hard times. She used to tell Amara, "The only way they win is if you quit, so don't you ever quit." Amara took a deep breath and walked to her homeroom. During lunch that day, Amara went to the library instead of the cafeteria. She found a computer in the back corner and started searching for sheet music for the Ravel piece. Most websites wanted to sell the music for a lot of money that Amara didn't have, but finally, she found a simplified arrangement that someone had posted for free. It was still very complicated, but it looked more manageable than the full professional version. She downloaded the sheet music and saved it to her school account. Then she printed out 3 copies at the library printer, using the last of her printing credit for the semester. While she was gathering her printed pages, someone tapped her shoulder. She turned around and saw Mr. Chen, the assistant music teacher. Mr. Chen was younger than Mrs. Henderson, probably in his 30s. He was always friendly to students and often helped them practice after school. "Amara, right?" Mr. Chen said with a smile. "I heard you signed up for the talent show." Amara nodded, clutching her sheet music. "Yes, sir. I saw what you wrote down. The Ravel left-hand concerto. That's ambitious." Amara waited for him to tell her it was impossible, like Mrs. Henderson had. But instead, Mr. Chen's smile got bigger. "I think that's wonderful," he said. "I actually studied some one-handed repertoire in college. It's fascinating music. The composers who write for one hand have to be so creative to make the music sound full and complete." Amara felt relief wash over her. "You don't think it's foolish?" Mr. Chen looked confused. "Foolish? Why would it be foolish? It's challenging, sure. But challenging doesn't mean impossible. Do you have a piano teacher helping you?" "No, sir. I usually just practice at home by myself. My mom can't afford private lessons." Mr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Well, I have some free time during 4th period and after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you want, I could help you work on the piece. I'm not an expert on left-hand repertoire, but I know enough piano technique to help you get started." Amara couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Really, you would help me?" "Of course. Any student who's willing to challenge themselves like this deserves support." Mr. Chen glanced down the hallway, then lowered his voice. "I heard Mrs. Henderson gave you a hard time this morning. Don't let her discourage you. She means well, but she doesn't always understand that there are many paths to making music." "Thank you, Mr. Chen," Amara said, feeling like she might cry from gratitude. "Thank you so much. Bring your sheet music to the practice rooms during 4th period tomorrow. We'll see what you can do." That afternoon, Amara practically ran home from school. She was so excited to start practicing that she forgot about her homework entirely. She dropped her backpack by the front door and went straight to the piano. She spread out her printed sheet music on the piano stand. The notes looked like a complicated maze of lines and dots. The left-hand part jumped all over the keyboard, playing bass notes, chords, and melody lines all at once. It looked impossible. Amara took a deep breath and positioned her left hand over the keys. She started with just the first measure, playing each note slowly. Her fingers felt clumsy and weak. She kept hitting wrong notes and losing her place in the music. After an hour of practice, she had learned maybe 10 seconds of the piece. At this rate, it would take her months to learn the whole thing. Her left hand was cramping and she felt frustrated tears starting to build up again. Her little brother Jamal came home from his after-school program. He was 8 years old and full of energy. He dumped his backpack on the floor and ran to the living room. "What you doing?" he asked, climbing onto the couch to watch her. "Trying to learn this piano piece," Amara said, shaking out her tired left hand. "Why are you only using one hand?" "Because my other arm is broken, dummy." "Oh yeah." Jamal thought about this. "Can I try?" "Try what?" "Playing the piano with one hand," Amara sighed. "Jamal, I need to practice, please." "Just for a minute?" Amara moved over on the piano bench and Jamal squeezed in next to her. She showed him how to place his left hand on the keys and play a simple scale. He banged on the keys enthusiastically but without any real technique. "This is hard," Jamal said after a minute.
"How do you make it sound like a real song?"
"Lots and lots of practice," Amara said. "And you have to really focus and work hard." Jamal lost interest and ran off to watch TV. But his question stuck in Amara's mind. How would she make this sound like a real song? Right now it just sounded like random notes being pressed on a keyboard. She went back to her laptop and watched more videos of people playing one-handed piano pieces. She paid close attention to their hand position, the way they used their wrist and arm to create different sounds, the way they pedaled to make notes blend together. She noticed that good one-handed playing required the pianist to think like an orchestra, not just like a piano player. That night at dinner, Amara told her mom about Mr. Chen offering to help her. "That's wonderful, baby," her mom said, spooning rice onto everyone's plates. "See, not everyone is like Mrs. Henderson. There are good people who want to see you succeed." Amara felt nervous playing in front of a teacher, even a nice one like Mr. Chen. Her hands felt shaky as she positioned her left hand on the keys. She played the 30 seconds she had learned, making a few mistakes but mostly getting through it. When she finished, Mr. Chen was nodding. "Good start. Your note reading is solid, and you have a good sense of rhythm. But let's talk about technique. With one-handed playing, your hand has to do the work of two hands. That means you need to think about finger strength, hand position, and how to use your arm weight to create sound." For the next 40 minutes, Mr. Chen worked with Amara on the first section of the piece. He showed her exercises to strengthen her fingers. He taught her how to use her wrist to help her hand cover more of the keyboard quickly. He explained how to use the pedal to make the notes blend together so it sounded fuller. By the end of the session, those 30 seconds of music sounded completely different. They sounded rich and full, almost like two hands were playing instead of one. "Practice those techniques at home," Mr. Chen said as the bell rang, "and don't try to learn too much too fast. It's better to learn small sections really well than to rush through the whole piece sloppily." "Thank you, Mr. Chen," Amara said, gathering her music. "See you Thursday," he said. As Amara left the practice room, she almost bumped into Mrs. Henderson in the hallway. Mrs. Henderson was carrying a stack of papers and looked surprised to see Amara coming out of the practice room during fourth period. "What were you doing in there, Miss Johnson?" Mrs. Henderson asked. "Mr. Chen is helping me practice my talent show piece during his free period." Mrs. Henderson's face darkened. "Is that so? I'll have to speak with Mr. Chen about that." She walked past Amara quickly, her shoes clicking angrily on the floor. Amara felt worried. What if Mrs. Henderson told Mr. Chen he couldn't help her anymore? Sure enough, the next day Jessica told Amara that she had heard Mrs. Henderson and Mr. Chen talking in the music office. Well, Mrs. Henderson had been talking, more like yelling. She said he was wasting his time and setting you up for public humiliation, Jessica whispered during lunch. She said he should be helping students who actually have a chance at doing well in the talent show. What did Mr. Chen say? Amara asked. He was really calm. He said that he believes in helping any student who shows dedication and wants to learn. Mrs. Henderson got even madder and said something about him being too soft and not understanding how the real music world works. Amara felt sick to her stomach. She was causing problems between the teachers. Maybe she should just quit and save everyone the trouble. But when she went to practice with Mr. Chen on Thursday, he acted like nothing had happened. "Ready to learn the next section?" he asked cheerfully. "Mr. Chen, I heard that Mrs. Henderson was upset about you helping me." Mr. Chen shrugged. "Mrs. Henderson is upset about a lot of things. That's not your problem or my problem. Now let's work on measures 12 through 20. They practiced and Amara learned another minute of the piece. Her left hand was getting stronger. The music was starting to make sense in her fingers, not just in her mind. Over the next 2 weeks, Amara fell into a routine. She practiced at home for an hour every morning before school, and 2 hours every evening after homework. She practiced with Mr. Chen during fourth period twice a week. She watched videos and listened to recordings of the Ravel piece until she could hear it in her sleep. Her left hand developed calluses. Her arm muscles got sore. Some days she felt like she was getting worse instead of better. She would miss notes she had played perfectly the day before. She would forget sections she thought she had memorized. But slowly, very slowly, she was learning the piece. After 2 weeks, she could play almost 3 minutes of it. It wasn't perfect, but it was recognizable as real music. Jessica came over one Saturday to listen to her practice. When Amara finished playing what she had learned so far, Jessica had tears in her eyes. "Amara, that's beautiful," Jessica said. "I can't believe you learned all that with one hand." It still needs a lot of work, Amara said, shaking out her tired hand. But you're really doing it. You're actually going to play this in the talent show. Amara looked at her sheet music at all the sections she still needed to learn. The auditions were now in 3 days. She still had so much work to do. But for the first time since she broke her arm, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she could actually pull this off. That night, her mom came into her room before bedtime. She sat on the edge of Amara's bed. "I've been watching you practice every day," her mom said. "I see how hard you're working. I want you to know that no matter what happens at that audition, I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom. But I also want to make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. Are you doing this because you love the music? Or are you doing this to prove something to Mrs. Henderson?" Amara thought about the question. "At first, I just wanted to prove her wrong. I wanted to show her that she couldn't tell me what I could or couldn't do, and now, I really love this piece, Mom. It's the most beautiful music I've ever played. When I get it right, when my hand does exactly what it's supposed to do, it feels like magic. So I guess I'm doing it for both reasons. I want to prove Mrs. Henderson wrong, but I also want to play this piece because it makes me happy." Her mom smiled and kissed her forehead. "Then you're doing it for the right reasons. Remember, baby, the best revenge is living well and doing what you love. Don't let anyone's doubt or negativity steal your joy." On Monday morning, 3 days before the auditions, Amara arrived at school early. She had printed out a final copy of her sheet music and wanted to practice in one of the empty practice rooms before first period. But when she got to the music wing, she heard voices coming from Mrs. Henderson's office. The door was partially open and Amara could hear Mrs. Henderson talking to someone. "I'm telling you, this whole situation is a disaster waiting to happen," Mrs. Henderson was saying. "That girl has no business attempting a piece like that. When she fails at the audition, and she will fail, it's going to be embarrassing for everyone involved. Maybe we should at least give her a chance to audition," said another voice. Amara recognized it as Ms. Bailey, the art teacher who was also one of the talent show judges. "A chance to make a fool of herself?" Mrs. Henderson said. "No, thank you. I've been teaching music for 20 years. I know talent when I see it, and I know when a student is in over their head. The kindest thing we can do is reject her audition and save her from humiliation." Amara stood frozen in the hallway. Mrs. Henderson was planning to reject her before she even auditioned. It didn't matter how hard she had worked or how much she had improved. Mrs. Henderson had already decided she would fail. Amara felt anger and hurt mixing together in her chest. She wanted to burst into that office and tell Mrs. Henderson exactly what she thought. But instead, she turned and walked quietly to the practice room. She closed the door, sat down at the piano, and placed her left hand on the keys. Then she played. She played all 3 minutes she had learned, pouring all of her anger and hurt and determination into the music. When she finished, her hand was shaking and tears were running down her face. But she wasn't crying because she was sad. She was crying because she had never played it better. The music had come from somewhere deep inside her, somewhere that Mrs. Henderson's words couldn't reach. And in that moment, Amara knew something important. She knew that no matter what Mrs. Henderson said or did, no one could take away her ability to make beautiful music. No one could take away the hours of work she had put in. No one could take away the magic she felt when her fingers found the right notes. Mrs. Henderson could reject her audition. She could laugh and make cruel comments. She could try to make Amara feel small and incapable. But she couldn't stop Amara from being a musician. That was something that belonged to Amara alone. When the bell rang for first period, Amara wiped her eyes and gathered her music. She had 3 more days to practice before the audition. Whatever happened after that, she would at least know that she had given everything she had. The 3 days before the audition passed in a blur of practice and worry. Amara practiced every moment she could. She practiced during breakfast, playing the music on the table with her fingers. She practiced during lunch in the library practice rooms. She practiced at home until her mom told her to go to bed because it was too late. By Wednesday night, the evening before the auditions, Amara could play the entire piece from beginning to end. It wasn't perfect. There were spots where she still stumbled or hit wrong notes, but it was complete and most of it sounded good. "You've got this," Jessica told her on the phone that night. "I know you're nervous, but you've worked so hard. You sound amazing." "What if Mrs. Henderson won't even let me audition?" Amara asked. "I heard her talking to Ms. Bailey. She wants to reject me before I even play. Then we'll complain to the principal. That's not fair and everyone will know it." You have as much right to audition as anyone else." After they hung up, Amara tried to sleep but couldn't. She kept running through the piece in her mind, seeing the notes, feeling the way her fingers needed to move. She finally fell asleep around midnight, and when her alarm went off at 6, she felt exhausted and nervous. At school, the morning dragged by. Amara couldn't focus in any of her classes. Her teachers' voices sounded far away. All she could think about was the audition, which was scheduled for right after lunch in the school auditorium. When lunchtime finally came, Amara couldn't eat. Her stomach felt like it was tied in knots. Jessica sat with her in the cafeteria, trying to distract her with stories about her weekend. But Amara barely heard any of it. At 12:30, students who were auditioning started gathering outside the auditorium. Amara counted 15 kids total. There was Brandon Chen with his violin. There was Maria Gonzalez, who was going to sing. There were the Davis twins with their magic props. Everyone looked nervous but also excited. Amara was the only one holding sheet music for piano. The auditorium doors opened, and Mrs. Henderson stood there with a clipboard. She looked at all the students and smiled, but her smile disappeared when her eyes landed on Amara. "Everyone come in and take a seat in the first few rows," Mrs. Henderson said. "We'll call you one at a time in the order you signed up." Amara had signed up early, so her name was third on the list. She sat in the second row, clutching her sheet music so hard that it started to crumple. The 3 judges sat at a table in the middle of the auditorium. There was Mrs. Henderson, Ms. Bailey, the art teacher, and Mr. Rodriguez, one of the gym teachers. Mr. Chen was sitting in the back row, not as a judge, but just to watch. He gave Amara a thumbs up when she looked back at him. The first audition was a boy doing a comedy routine. He told jokes for 3 minutes, and some of them were actually funny. The judges clapped politely and wrote notes on their papers. The second audition was a girl doing a dance to a pop song. She was good, and her routine looked professional. The judges smiled and nodded. Then Mrs. Henderson called Amara's name. "Amara Johnson, piano." Amara stood up on shaky legs. She walked up the steps to the stage, her purple cast feeling heavier than ever. The stage piano was a beautiful black grand piano that was usually kept covered with a cloth. Someone had uncovered it for the auditions. Amara sat down on the piano bench and adjusted her position. She set her sheet music on the stand, even though she had most of it memorized by now. She needed it there just in case she forgot something. She looked out at the judges' table. Mrs. Henderson was already frowning. Ms. Bailey looked curious. Mr. Rodriguez looked confused about why someone with the cast was auditioning to play piano. "Whenever you're ready, Miss Johnson," Mrs. Henderson said in a bored voice. Amara took a deep breath. She positioned her left hand over the keys. And then she started to play. The first notes came out clear and strong. Her hand moved through the opening section that she had practiced 1,000 times. She could hear the music filling the auditorium, could feel it vibrating through the piano bench. For a moment, she forgot about the judges and Mrs. Henderson and everything else. There was only the music. She played through the first minute perfectly. Her hand flowed across the keys, playing the melody up high and then jumping down to the bass notes. She used the pedal to blend the sounds together just like Mr. Chen had taught her. But then, in the second minute, she hit a wrong note. Just one wrong note, but it was loud and obvious. She kept playing, trying not to let it throw her off. A few measures later, she missed another note. Then her hand cramped slightly, and she had to slow down to get through a difficult section. She could hear it wasn't perfect. She could hear all the little mistakes that she had hoped wouldn't happen during the audition. But she kept playing, pushing through to the end of the piece. When she played the final chord, there was silence in the auditorium. Amara lifted her hand off the keys and looked at the judges. Mr. Chen was standing in the back row clapping loudly. A few of the other students were clapping too. Ms. Bailey was smiling and clapping politely. Mr. Rodriguez looked impressed and was nodding his head. But Mrs. Henderson wasn't clapping. She was writing something on her paper with hard, angry strokes of her pen. "Thank you, Miss Johnson," Mrs. Henderson said without looking up. "You may take your seat." Amara walked back down to her seat, her legs feeling wobbly. She didn't know if she had done well enough. She had made mistakes, but she had also done something really hard, and she had gotten through it. The rest of the auditions continued. Amara barely paid attention. She kept replaying her performance in her mind, hearing every wrong note, feeling every moment where her hand had stumbled. After all the auditions were finished, Mrs. Henderson stood up. Thank you all for auditioning. The judges will deliberate and post the results tomorrow morning. Those who are selected will have 4 weeks to prepare for the actual talent show. The students filed out of the auditorium. Amara walked slowly, feeling drained. Mr. Chen caught up with her in the hallway. You did great, he said with a big smile. I'm so proud of you. That piece is incredibly difficult and you played it with real feeling. But I made mistakes, Amara said quietly. Everyone makes mistakes, especially when they're nervous. The important thing is that you showed what you can do. You showed courage and skill. That matters more than a few wrong notes. Amara wanted to believe him, but she had seen the look on Mrs. Henderson's face. She had a bad feeling about what was going to happen. That evening at home, Amara tried to distract herself with homework, but she couldn't focus. Her mom noticed and sat down next to her at the kitchen table. How did the audition go? Her mom asked. I don't know. I made some mistakes. Mrs. Henderson looked really unhappy. Did you do your best? Amara thought about it. Yes, I played as well as I could today. Then that's all that matters. You can't control what the judges decide. You can only control your effort, and you gave it everything. I'm proud of you for that. That night, Amara had trouble sleeping again. She kept imagining seeing the results posted tomorrow. She imagined her name not being on the list, seeing all the other kids celebrating while she had to walk away knowing Mrs. Henderson had won. The next morning, Amara got to school early. A small crowd of students was already gathered around the bulletin board outside the main office. Jessica was there, and she waved Amara over. The list just went up, Jessica said. Amara pushed through the crowd to look at the paper. It was titled Talent Show Performers Approved Acts. Her eyes scanned down the list quickly. Brandon Chen, violin. Solo Maria Gonzalez, vocal performance Davis Twins, magic act Sarah. Mitchell, modern dance Marcus Thompson, drum solo Kevin. Wu, guitar performance. The list went on. 12 names total. Amara read through all of them twice. Her name wasn't there. She felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. She had been rejected. After all that work, after all those hours of practice, after pushing through the pain in her hand and the exhaustion and the self-doubt, Mrs. Henderson had rejected her. This is wrong, Jessica said angrily. You were better than half the people on that list. This is completely unfair. Other students were murmuring too. Several of them had been at the auditions and had heard Amara play. They knew she should have been accepted. Maybe there just wasn't enough room, someone suggested. There's always room, Jessica said. They usually accept about 15 acts. There are only 12 names here. Amara couldn't speak. She felt tears building up but refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone. She turned and walked quickly to the bathroom. She locked herself in a stall and finally let the tears come. It hurt so much. Not just because she had been rejected, but because she knew why. It wasn't about the music or the mistakes she had made. It was about Mrs. Henderson's prejudice. It was about Mrs. Henderson thinking that people like her didn't belong on that stage. After a few minutes, there was a knock on the stall door. Amara, it's me, Jessica's voice said. Amara unlocked the door. Jessica came in and hugged her tight. This is so unfair, Jessica said. We should complain. We should tell the principal. What good would that do? Amara said, wiping her eyes. Mrs. Henderson has been here for 20 years. The principal already didn't listen when my mom complained about her comments before. Why would he listen now? Because this is different. I heard about the results, he said gently. I'm sorry, Amara. I thought for sure you would get approved. Did you see the judge's feedback? Amara asked without lifting her head. Mr. Chen hesitated. I saw Mrs. Henderson's comments on the judge sheet. She wrote that your performance was technically insufficient and that the piece was far too ambitious for your skill level. But Ms. Bailey and Mr. Rodriguez both gave you positive feedback. Ms. Bailey wrote that you showed remarkable creativity and dedication. Mr. Rodriguez wrote that it was impressive for a student with limited mobility. So it was 2 against 1? Decisions require a majority vote. Mrs. Henderson convinced at least one of the other judges to side with her. Amara finally lifted her head. Mr. Chen, can I ask you something honestly? Do you think I was rejected because of my playing or because Mrs. Henderson doesn't like me? Mr. Chen looked uncomfortable. I think Mrs. Henderson has certain ideas about what a talented student looks like and how they should behave. And when students don't fit into those ideas, she has trouble seeing their actual abilities. You mean she's racist? Mr. Chen looked around to make sure no one was listening. I can't say that officially, but I will say that I've noticed patterns in who she chooses to support and who she chooses to criticize, and those patterns concern me. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Mr. Chen said something that surprised Amara. What if you performed anyway? Amara looked at him confused. What do you mean? I'm not in the talent show. What if you did something else? What if you found another opportunity to share your music? Like what? I don't know yet. But let me think about it. Don't give up, Amara. You've worked too hard to let one person's judgment stop you. Over the next few days, things at school got worse for Amara. Mrs. Henderson seemed pleased that Amara had been rejected. In music class, she made comments about how important it was to know your limitations and to be realistic about your abilities. During one class, Mrs. Henderson played a recording of a professional piano performance. It was beautiful and flawless. When it ended, Mrs. Henderson said, "This is what real musical excellence sounds like. This is the standard we should all be aspiring to. Not gimmicks or novelty acts. Real skill developed through years of proper training." She looked directly at Amara when she said, "gimmicks and novelty acts." Several students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Marcus, the boy who had been approved to play drums in the talent show, raised his hand. "Mrs. Henderson, don't you think Amara's one-handed piano playing was pretty impressive, though? I mean, she learned a really hard piece in just a few weeks." Mrs. Henderson's face went cold. "Mr. Thompson, impressive effort doesn't replace actual talent. There's a difference between working hard and actually being good at something. Sometimes people need to accept that they're not cut out for certain things no matter how much they want it." Amara felt her face burning. She stared down at her desk, wishing she could disappear. After class, Marcus came up to her. "I'm sorry," he said. "I was trying to help, but I think I just made it worse." "It's okay," Amara said. "Thanks for trying." Jessica was waiting for her in the hallway and she looked furious. "Did you hear what she said? That was so out of line. We need to report her." "To who?" Amara asked tiredly. "The principal who already doesn't care? The other teachers who are her friends? There's no point, Jessica. So we just let her keep treating you like this? What else can I do?" That afternoon, Amara's mom got a call from the school. It was from Mrs. Henderson, requesting a parent-teacher conference. When her mom got home from work that night, she looked stressed. "Mrs. Henderson called me today," her mom said. "She wants to meet with me and the principal tomorrow afternoon. She said she's concerned about your attitude in class and your unrealistic expectations about your musical abilities." Amara felt anger rising in her chest. "My attitude? I haven't done anything wrong. I just show up to class and try to learn like everyone else." "I know, baby. I told her I would come to the meeting. I think it's time someone stood up to this woman." The next day felt endless. Amara couldn't focus in any of her classes. All she could think about was her mom meeting with Mrs. Henderson and the principal. What would Mrs. Henderson say? What would the principal do? When school ended, Amara waited outside the principal's office. She could hear voices inside, but they were too muffled to make out words. After about 30 minutes, the door opened. Her mom came out first and she looked upset but also angry. The principal, Mr. Davis, followed her. He was a middle-aged black man who usually seemed friendly, but right now he looked tired. Mrs. Henderson came out last. She saw Amara sitting in the waiting area and gave her a look that was almost victorious. "Come on, baby," Amara's mom said, taking her hand. "Let's go home." They didn't talk until they were in the car. Then her mom sighed deeply. "What happened?" Amara asked. "Mrs. Henderson spent 20 minutes telling the principal about how you've been disruptive and disrespectful in class. She said you've been undermining her authority and creating a negative environment for other students. She said your insistence on performing in the talent show despite her professional judgment showed a lack of respect for her expertise." "That's not true. I've never been disrespectful to her. I know." "I told them that. I told them about how she's been treating you, about the comments she's made, about how she rejected you from the talent show even though other judges thought you were good. I told them I think she's discriminating against you." "What did the principal say?" Her mom's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "He said he understands my concerns, but that Mrs. Henderson is a veteran teacher with an excellent record. He said that sometimes students and parents misinterpret professional feedback as personal attacks." He said he would monitor the situation, but that he trusts Mrs. Henderson's judgment about music education. So, he's not going to do anything. No, he's not. They drove in silence for a while. Then Amara said quietly, "Maybe Mrs. Henderson is right. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should just accept that and stop trying." Her mom pulled the car over to the side of the road. She turned to look at Amara with fierce eyes. "Don't you ever say that again. Don't you ever let someone else's prejudice make you doubt yourself. You are talented. You are hardworking. You are capable of amazing things. Mrs. Henderson's problem is not with your abilities. Her problem is with who you are, and that is her failure, not yours." Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks. "But I'm so tired, Mom. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of proving myself. I'm tired of people like her making me feel like I don't belong." Her mom pulled her into a hug across the car seats. "I know, baby, I know. And I wish I could fix this for you. I wish I could make people like Mrs. Henderson disappear from your life. But I can't. All I can do is remind you of who you are and teach you how to keep going even when people try to tear you down." They sat there for a long time, holding each other. When they finally drove home, Amara felt a little bit stronger. Not happy, but stronger. That night, Amara sat at her piano. She hadn't practiced since the audition. Her left hand felt stiff from lack of use. She placed her hand on the keys and started playing the Ravel piece. At first, it sounded rough. She made mistakes she hadn't made in weeks. But as she kept playing, muscle memory took over. Her hand remembered what to do. The music started to flow again, and as she played, Amara realized something. Mrs. Henderson could reject her from the talent show. She could make cruel comments and treat her unfairly. She could convince the principal that everything was fine. But she couldn't take away Amara's ability to make music. She couldn't reach inside Amara's heart and remove her love for the piano. That belonged to Amara alone, and no one could take it away unless she let them. When she finished playing, her little brother Jamal was standing in the doorway. "That was pretty," he said. "Thanks, Jamal. Are you sad?" "Yeah, I'm sad. Why?" "Because someone treated me unfairly and there's nothing I can do about it." Jamal thought about this. "When kids are mean to me at school, Mom says I should be nice anyway and prove them wrong by being awesome." Amara smiled despite her sadness. "Mom's pretty smart." "Yeah, so maybe you should just keep being awesome at piano and that teacher will see she was wrong." "Maybe," Amara said. But she didn't really believe that Mrs. Henderson would ever admit she was wrong. Some people never did. Still, Jamal had a point. The best thing she could do was keep being good at piano. Keep practicing. Keep learning. Keep making music that made her happy. Not for Mrs. Henderson or the talent show or anyone else. Just for herself, and maybe, somehow, that would be enough. The weekend after the meeting with the principal, Amara tried to move on with her life. She practiced piano because it made her feel better, not because she had anywhere to perform. She hung out with Jessica and tried not to think about the talent show that was now only 3 weeks away. On Monday morning, there was a buzz of excitement in the hallways. Amara heard people talking about a new student teacher who had just started that day. Student teachers came sometimes from the local university to observe and learn how to teach. Most students didn't pay much attention to them, but this student teacher was different. Her name was Ms. Rodriguez, and she was assigned to observe Mrs. Henderson's music classes for the next 3 weeks. She was young, probably in her mid-20s with long dark hair and a bright smile. She wore professional clothes but also had colorful earrings and painted nails. She looked friendly and approachable. When Amara walked into music class that day, Ms. Rodriguez was standing at the front of the room with Mrs. Henderson. Mrs. Henderson was explaining the lesson plan while Ms. Rodriguez took notes on a tablet. "Class, this is Ms. Rodriguez," Mrs. Henderson said in her formal voice. "She's completing her teaching credential and will be observing our class for the next few weeks. I expect you all to be on your best behavior and show her what excellent students you are." "Hi, everyone," Ms. Rodriguez said with a warm smile. "I'm excited to be here. I love music and I'm looking forward to learning from all of you." Mrs. Henderson looked like she wanted to correct her for being too casual, but she just pressed her lips together and started the day's lesson. Throughout the class, Amara noticed Ms. Rodriguez watching everything carefully. She didn't just observe Mrs. Henderson. She watched the students too, noticing who participated, who looked confused, who seemed engaged or bored. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. At the end of class, as students were packing up, Ms. Rodriguez stopped Amara at the door. "Excuse me, you're Amara, right?" Ms. Rodriguez asked. Amara nodded, surprised. Yes, ma'am. I heard you play piano. Is that true? Amara glanced at Mrs. Henderson, who was erasing the whiteboard but definitely listening. Yes, I play. That's wonderful. I actually studied piano in college. What kind of music do you like to play? All kinds, I guess. Classical, mostly. Ms. Rodriguez's eyes lit up. Classical is my favorite, too. Do you have a favorite composer? Before Amara could answer, Mrs. Henderson's voice cut through the conversation. Ms. Rodriguez, we need to discuss this afternoon's lesson plans before your next observation period. Oh, of course, Ms. Rodriguez said. She smiled at Amara. We'll talk more later. I'd love to hear about your piano playing. Over the next few days, Ms. Rodriguez observed all of Mrs. Henderson's classes. Amara noticed that she took a lot of notes. She also noticed that Ms. Rodriguez's smile got a little less bright each day. By Wednesday, she looked troubled. On Thursday, during lunch period, Amara was in one of the small practice rooms in the music wing. She went there sometimes when she needed to be alone. She wasn't playing piano, just sitting quietly. There was a soft knock on the door. Amara opened it and found Ms. Rodriguez standing there. Hi, Amara, do you mind if I come in for a minute? Okay, Amara said, confused about why a teacher would want to talk to her. Ms. Rodriguez closed the door and sat down. I've been observing your class for a few days now and I've noticed something. Mrs. Henderson seems to treat you differently than other students. She's colder with you. She dismisses your comments. She makes examples out of your mistakes more than others. Is that something you've noticed too? Amara didn't know what to say. She wasn't sure if this was a trap. What if Ms. Rodriguez told Mrs. Henderson what she said? Ms. Rodriguez seemed to understand her hesitation. I'm asking because I care, not because I'm trying to get you in trouble. I'm here to learn how to be a good teacher, and part of that means recognizing when teaching practices aren't fair or appropriate. Something about the way she said it made Amara trust her. Yes, Amara said quietly. She's been treating me like this since I broke my arm. Maybe even before that. Tell me what happened, Ms. Rodriguez said gently. So Amara told her everything. She told her about breaking her arm and Mrs. Henderson's comments in class. She told her about finding the one-handed piano music and working with Mr. Chen. She told her about the audition and being rejected even though 2 judges had given her positive feedback. She told her about the meeting with her mom and the principal. Ms. Rodriguez listened to everything without interrupting. When Amara finished, there were tears in Ms. Rodriguez's eyes. I'm so sorry that happened to you, she said. That's not right. None of that is right. But there's nothing anyone can do about it, Amara said. Mrs. Henderson has been here forever, and the principal believes her over parents and students. Ms. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said, Can I ask you something? Do you still have that one-handed piano piece you learned? The Ravel? Yes, I still practice it sometimes. Would you be willing to play it for me? Right now? Amara looked at the piano in the practice room. She hadn't played for anyone except Mr. Chen and her family since the audition. I guess so. But why? Because I want to hear what Mrs. Henderson rejected. I want to understand the full picture. Amara sat down at the piano and placed her left hand on the keys. She took a deep breath and started to play. She had practiced so much over the past weeks that the piece flowed out of her naturally. Her hand danced across the keys, creating music that filled the small room. When she finished, she turned around. Ms. Rodriguez was crying openly now. Amara, that was incredible, Ms. Rodriguez said, wiping her eyes. That was truly, genuinely incredible. Really? Really. And I'm not just saying that to make you feel better. I know a lot about piano. I have a master's degree in music performance. I wrote my thesis on one-handed piano repertoire. I performed several one-handed pieces for my graduate recital. So when I tell you that what you just played was impressive, I mean it from a place of knowledge and experience. Amara felt something warm spreading through her chest, someone who actually knew about music, someone who specialized in this exact type of playing thought she was good. Ravel Left-Hand Concerto is one of the most difficult pieces in the one-handed repertoire, Ms. Rodriguez continued. Professional pianists practice for years to master it. The fact that you learned even an excerpt of it in a few weeks with just basic instruction shows real talent and dedication. Mrs. Henderson was wrong to reject you. Completely, absolutely wrong. But she's the teacher. Doesn't she know better? Ms. Rodriguez shook her head. Being a teacher for a long time doesn't automatically make someone a good teacher. And having strong opinions doesn't make those opinions correct. Mrs. Henderson let her bias cloud her judgment. That's not your fault. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ms. Rodriguez said, I want to help you if you'll let me. I have some free time over the next 3 weeks before the talent show. I could work with you on the Ravel piece. I could teach you techniques that I learned when I was studying one-handed repertoire. I could help you make this piece even better. Amara felt hope rising in her chest for the first time in days. But what good would it do? I'm not in the talent show. Maybe not. But that doesn't mean you should stop working on something you love. And who knows? Sometimes opportunities appear when we least expect them. For the rest of that lunch period, Ms. Rodriguez worked with Amara on the piece. She showed her breathing techniques to help with performance anxiety. She demonstrated how to use body weight to create fuller sound with one hand. She shared tricks for making the left hand cover more ground across the keyboard. When you play with one hand, you have to think like an entire orchestra, Ms. Rodriguez explained. You're not just a pianist anymore. You're the strings, the brass, the percussion, everything at once. You have to make each note count double. She showed Amara how to lean into certain chords to make them ring out longer. She taught her how to use the pedal in specific ways to create layers of sound. She explained how subtle changes in timing could make the music more emotional and powerful. By the end of the lunch period, Amara played the piece again. It sounded completely different. It sounded richer, fuller, more professional. That's it, Ms. Rodriguez said excitedly. That's exactly right. You're a natural at this. Amara, you have real instinct for musical expression. They agreed to meet every day during lunch. Period for the next 3 weeks. Ms. Rodriguez said she would also try to observe Mrs. Henderson's teaching methods more carefully and document anything concerning. I'm a student teacher, so I don't have much power, Ms. Rodriguez said, but I do have to write a report about my observation experience, and I plan to be very honest in that report about what I've seen. Over the next few days, Amara felt her confidence returning. Working with Ms. Rodriguez was completely different from working with Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen was helpful and supportive, but he didn't specialize in one-handed playing. Ms. Rodriguez understood it deeply. She could hear things in Amara's playing that needed adjustment. She could explain techniques that made difficult passages easier. But Mrs. Henderson noticed the time they were spending together, and she didn't like it. On the 3rd day of their lunch practice sessions, She's helping me so much with the piano piece. I am playing better now than I ever did before the audition. Jessica looked thoughtful. You know what? Maybe you should perform anyway. Like not in the official talent show, but somewhere else. Show everyone what Mrs. Henderson rejected. Where would I perform? I don't know. But there has to be somewhere. That evening, Amara was practicing at home when her mom came home from work. She listened from the doorway for a few minutes, then came to sit on the couch. Baby, you sound amazing, her mom said. You've gotten so much better since the audition. Ms. Rodriguez has been helping me. She really knows what she's doing. Her mom smiled. I'm glad you found someone who believes in you. But I have to ask, why are you still practicing so hard? You're not in the talent show. What's the goal now? Amara thought about the question. I guess at first I was practicing to prove Mrs. Henderson wrong. But now, I'm practicing because I love this piece. I love the way it sounds. I love the way it makes me feel when I play it right. I want to get it perfect just because it deserves to be played perfectly. Her mom's eyes got misty. That's the right reason, baby. Music should be about love, not revenge. But I still wish I could perform it for people, just so they could hear what's possible. Her mom nodded slowly. Let me think about that. The next week at school, something happened that Amara didn't expect. During lunch on Tuesday, the principal, Mr. Davis, walked into the practice room where Amara and Ms. Rodriguez were working. He knocked lightly on the open door. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Davis said. Ms. Rodriguez, may I speak with you for a moment? Ms. Rodriguez looked surprised but nodded. Of course. Amara, keep working on that transition we just discussed. They stepped into the hallway and Amara could hear them talking in low voices. She couldn't make out the words, but the conversation seemed serious. After about 5 minutes, Ms. Rodriguez came back in. The principal wasn't with her. What was that about? Amara asked. Ms. Rodriguez looked both concerned and thoughtful. Mr. Davis wanted to discuss my observation report. I had to submit a midpoint evaluation last night about my experience here. What did you write? I wrote the truth. I wrote about teaching methods I observed that concerned me. I wrote about how certain students seem to be treated differently than others. I wrote about a talented student being discouraged rather than supported. Did you get in trouble? No, actually, Mr. Davis seemed troubled by what I wrote. He asked me questions about specific incidents. He wanted examples. I gave them to him. Ms. Rodriguez paused. He also asked about you specifically. He asked if I had heard you play piano. What did you say? I said I had. And I told him that in my professional opinion, you're a talented pianist with real potential. I told him that rejecting you from the talent show was a mistake. Amara felt her heart beating faster. What did he say? He said he would look into the matter further. I don't know what that means, but at least he's listening. That afternoon, something unusual happened. Mrs. Henderson was called to the principal's office in the middle of her last class of the day. A substitute teacher had to come finish the lesson. The whole class buzzed with speculation about what was happening. Jessica leaned over to Amara. Do you think this is about you? About Ms. Rodriguez's report? Maybe, I don't know. After school, Amara saw Mrs. Henderson leaving the building. She looked angry. Her face was red and she was walking quickly with her bag clutched tightly. She got in her car and drove away faster than normal. The next morning, there were whispers in the hallway. Someone said they had heard Mrs. Henderson yelling at Mr. Davis in his office yesterday. Someone else said they saw her crying in her car. Marcus told Amara that his mom, who worked in the front office, said there had been a serious meeting about teaching practices. In music class that day, Mrs. Henderson was quieter than usual. She taught the lesson, but without her usual sharpness. She didn't make any cutting comments. She didn't call on Amara at all, but she didn't single her out negatively either. It was like she was being very, very careful. After class, Mr. Chen pulled Amara aside in the hallway. Did you hear what happened? I heard there was a meeting. That's all I know. Mr. Chen looked around to make sure no one was listening. Several parents have filed complaints about Mrs. Henderson over the past few days. Ms. Rodriguez's report apparently provided documentation that supported what the parents were saying. The principal is conducting a formal review of her teaching methods. She's been put on notice that her behavior is being monitored. What does that mean? It means she has to be on her best behavior. If more complaints come in, or if the review finds serious problems, there could be consequences. Real consequences. Amara didn't know how to feel about that. Part of her was glad that someone was finally taking the complaints seriously. But part of her felt strange about it too. She hadn't wanted to get Mrs. Henderson in trouble. She had just wanted to be treated fairly. Over the next few days, Mrs. Henderson was noticeably different in class. She was polite to everyone, almost cold in her professionalism. She didn't praise anyone, but she didn't criticize anyone either. She just taught the lessons and dismissed the class. Ms. Rodriguez continued working with Amara every day. 2 weeks before the talent show, she told Amara something exciting. I think you're ready, Ms. Rodriguez said after their practice session. I think your performance of this piece is genuinely at a level where you could perform it publicly, and people would be impressed. Really? Really? You've worked so hard and it shows. Your technique has improved dramatically. Your musical expression is mature and thoughtful. I'm proud of you, Amara. Amara felt tears starting. Thank you. For everything. You didn't have to help me, but you did. Of course I did. That's what teachers are supposed to do. We're supposed to see potential in our students and help them develop it. That's the whole job. I wish you were my actual music teacher instead of just a student teacher. Ms. Rodriguez smiled sadly. Me too, but my placement here ends in 1 week. After that, I'll go back to the university to finish my credential program. Will I ever see you again? I hope so. I'm going to give you my email address. Stay in touch, okay? Let me know how everything goes. And if you ever need advice or support, you can reach out to me anytime. The next week passed quickly. Ms. Rodriguez's last day at the school was Friday, 1 week before the talent show. She gave Amara a final lesson during study hall. Remember everything we worked on, Ms. Rodriguez said. Remember to breathe. Remember to use your whole body, not just your hand. Remember that you're telling a story with this music, not just playing notes. I will. I promise. And Amara, don't let anyone ever make you feel like you don't belong. You're a musician. That's not something someone can give you or take away. It's who you are. They hugged, and Amara cried a little. Ms. Rodriguez had been more than a teacher. She had been a friend and a champion when Amara needed one most. That weekend, Amara practiced more than ever. Her cast had been off for 2 weeks now, and her right arm was getting stronger. She was doing physical therapy exercises every day, but she wasn't trying to use her right hand for piano yet. The Ravel piece was a left-hand piece, and she wanted to perform it the way it was meant to be performed. On Sunday evening, her mom sat down with her at the piano. "I've been thinking about what you said, about wanting to perform this piece for people. Yeah? What if you recorded yourself playing it? We could make a really good video and share it online. That way, even though you're not in the school talent show, people can still hear what you've accomplished." Amara thought about it. It wasn't the same as performing on stage, but it was something. Okay, let's do it. They spent the next hour making a video. Her mom used her phone to record from different angles. Amara played the piece 3 times and they picked the best performance. Her mom even added a simple title screen that said, "Ravel's Piano Concerto for the Left Hand, performed by Amara Johnson, age 12. That night, her mom posted the video to social media with a caption explaining about Amara's broken arm and how she had learned the difficult piece. She didn't mention Mrs. Henderson or the talent show rejection. She just focused on Amara's achievement. Within an hour, people started commenting. Friends and family members shared the video. By the next morning, it had a few hundred views. By Monday afternoon, it had a few thousand. When Amara got to school on Monday, several students stopped her in the hallway. "I saw your video. That was incredible. How did you learn to play like that with one hand? You're amazing." Even students she didn't know well were coming up to her. The video was spreading around the school. By lunchtime, it seemed like everyone had seen it. Jessica ran up to her in the cafeteria, breathless with excitement. "Amara, the video has like 10,000 views now. And someone from the local news station shared it on their page." Amara couldn't believe it. "The news?" "Yeah. They wrote something about how you're an inspiring young musician overcoming challenges. This is so cool." But the best thing happened that afternoon. Amara was called to the principal's office over the intercom during 6th period. Her heart started pounding. Was she in trouble for the video? When she got to the office, Mr. Davis was waiting for her. He looked serious but not angry. "Amara, please sit down," he said. The 5 days before the talent show felt like both forever and no time at all. Amara practiced constantly. She practiced before school, during lunch, after school, and before bed. Her left hand was stronger than it had ever been. The music flowed from her fingers like water. Her mom took Friday off work so she could be there for the performance. Her little brother Jamal was excited too. He told everyone at his elementary school that his sister was going to play piano with one hand in front of hundreds of people. On Friday morning, Amara woke up with butterflies in her stomach. She could barely eat breakfast. Her mom made her favorite pancakes, but she could only manage a few bites. "You need to eat something," her mom said gently. "You need energy for tonight." "I'm too nervous to eat." "I know, baby. But try. You've worked so hard for this moment. Your body needs fuel." Amara forced down a little more food. Then she sat at the piano and played through her piece one more time. It sounded good. It sounded ready. At school, everyone was talking about the talent show. The performers were all excited and nervous. People kept coming up to Amara in the hallways to wish her good luck. Even students who had never talked to her before were saying nice things. "I saw your video," a girl from her math class said. "I can't wait to hear you play tonight. You're going to be amazing." Marcus found her at lunch. "Hey, I'm performing right before you in the program." "Don't worry. My drum solo will get the crowd warmed up for you." Jessica was practically bouncing with excitement. "I can't believe this is actually happening. After everything Mrs. Henderson did to try to stop you, you're actually going to perform." It's perfect, but Amara hadn't seen Mrs. Henderson all day. She wasn't in the music classroom during music class. A substitute teacher was there instead. "Mrs. Henderson called in sick today," the substitute explained. "I'm Mr. Patterson. I'll be teaching this class and helping with the talent show setup tonight." Jessica leaned over to whisper to Amara. "Sick, right? She probably just doesn't want to be there to see you perform." Amara didn't know how she felt about that. Part of her was relieved she wouldn't have to see Mrs. Henderson's disapproving face. But part of her had wanted Mrs. Henderson to be there, to see what Amara could do, to realize she had been wrong. The school day ended at 2 o'clock so they could set up for the talent show. The performance was scheduled to start at 6. Performers were supposed to arrive by 5 for a quick rehearsal and sound check. Amara went home with her mom to rest and get ready. She took a shower and put on the nice dress her mom had bought for the occasion. It was deep purple, the same color as the cast she had worn. Her mom braided her hair in a beautiful pattern and let her wear a little bit of makeup. When Amara looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the confident girl staring back. She looked older, more mature. She looked like someone who belonged on a stage. They arrived at school at 4:45. The parking lot was already filling up with cars. Parents and families were starting to arrive early to get good seats. Amara's heart started beating faster. Inside the auditorium, chaos reigned. Students were running around with props and instruments. Teachers were testing microphones and adjusting lights. The piano had been rolled to the center of the stage and tuned that afternoon. Mr. Chen found Amara backstage. "There you are. How are you feeling?" "Nervous." "Really, really nervous. That's completely normal. Every performer gets nervous. The trick is to use that nervous energy to make your performance even better." He handed her a bottle of water. "Stay hydrated. And remember, you've practiced this piece hundreds of times. Your hands know what to do. Trust yourself." The performers gathered for a quick run-through of the show order. Amara would be performing 9th out of 13 acts. Mr. Patterson explained that each performer would be introduced by a student MC, and then they would have 5 minutes maximum for their performance. At 5:30, the doors opened and the audience started filling the auditorium. Amara peeked through the curtain and saw hundreds of people taking their seats. She spotted her mom and Jamal in the 3rd row. Her mom saw her peeking and gave her a big thumbs up. More and more seats filled. Teachers sat along the sides. The principal, Mr. Davis, sat in the front row with some of the school board members. Amara scanned the crowd looking for Mrs. Henderson, but she didn't see her anywhere. At 5:50, all the performers were told to take their places backstage. The curtain was closed. They could hear the audience talking and laughing on the other side. Jessica found Amara in the backstage area. She wasn't performing, but she had volunteered to help with backstage coordination. "You look beautiful," Jessica said, "and you're going to be incredible. I believe in you." "Thanks for everything," Amara said, hugging her friend. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad I got to be here for it." At 6 o'clock exactly, the lights dimmed. The audience got quiet. The curtain opened and the student MC walked out to applause. "Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lincoln Middle School's annual Spring Talent Show. We have an amazing lineup of talented students ready to perform for you tonight. Let's give all our performers a big round of applause." The audience clapped loudly. Backstage, the performers waited nervously for their turns. The first act was a girl singing a pop song. She had a good voice and the audience clapped enthusiastically. The second act was the Davis twins doing magic tricks that got laughs and gasps. The third act was Brandon Chen playing violin, and he was excellent as always. One by one, the acts performed. Each one was good. The audience was warm and supportive, clapping after every performance. But Amara could barely focus on watching. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her left hand felt cold and shaky. Marcus performed his drum solo 8th. He was energetic and fun, and he got the audience clapping along. When he finished, everyone cheered loudly. He came off stage grinning and gave Amara a high five. "You're up next." "Go get 'em!" The MC walked back on stage. "Our next performer is Amara Johnson, who will be playing Ravel's Piano Concerto for the left hand. Please welcome Amara." The audience applauded and Amara walked out onto the stage. The lights were bright, making it hard to see individual faces in the crowd. She could see the general shape of hundreds of people watching her. Her legs felt wobbly. She walked to the piano and sat down on the bench. She adjusted her position slightly and placed her left hand on the keys. Her right arm rested at her side. She took a deep breath. In that moment, sitting at the piano in front of all those people, Amara thought about everything that had led her to this point. She thought about breaking her arm and Mrs. Henderson's cruel comments. She thought about the hours of practice, the frustration and the calluses. She thought about Mr. Chen's kindness and Ms. Rodriguez's belief in her. She thought about her mom's support and the family motto, "They can doubt you, but they can't stop you." She looked out at the audience one more time, and then she began to play. The first notes rang out clear and strong. Her left hand moved across the keys with confidence, playing the melody up high and then sweeping down to play the bass notes. The music filled the auditorium, rich and full despite coming from only one hand. Amara felt the nervousness melting away. This was what she had practiced for. This was what she loved. Her hand knew every note, every phrase, every subtle dynamic change. She wasn't just playing music anymore. She was the music. She played through the lyrical opening section, her hand singing out the melody with expression and feeling. Then came the faster, more technical section, where her fingers had to fly across the keys. She had practiced this section hundreds of times and now it flowed perfectly. She could feel the audience's attention, could sense them leaning forward in their seats. No one was talking or moving. They were all listening, caught up in the music. The piece built to a dramatic climax, her hand playing powerful chords that resonated through the piano. Then it softened again, becoming tender and intimate. Amara poured all of her emotions into the music, her hurt, her anger, her determination, her joy. Everything she had felt over the past months came out through her fingers. As she approached the final section, she realized something wonderful. She wasn't thinking about Mrs. Henderson anymore. She wasn't thinking about proving anyone wrong. She was just thinking about the music, about making it as beautiful as possible, about sharing something meaningful with everyone listening. She played the final phrases with deep feeling, letting each note ring out. Then she played the last chord, letting it sustain and slowly fade into silence. For a moment, just a brief moment, there was complete silence in the auditorium. Amara lifted her hand from the keys. She had done it. She had played the entire piece without any major mistakes. She had done her best. Then the silence exploded into sound. The entire audience leaped to their feet. The applause was thunderous, overwhelming. People were cheering and whistling and shouting. She could hear her brother's voice yelling, "That's my sister," over all the noise. Amara stood up from the piano bench, her legs shaking. She gave a small bow and the applause got even louder. She could see her mom in the third row, crying and clapping so hard her hands must hurt. Mr. Davis was standing and clapping enthusiastically. The following Monday at school, everything felt different. People Amara had never talked to before stopped her in the hallways to compliment her performance. Teachers smiled at her. Someone had put up a poster in the main hallway with a picture from the talent show and the words, "Congratulations to all our talented performers." But the biggest change happened in music class. When Amara walked in, Mrs. Henderson was at her desk, not looking at anyone. The students filed in and took their seats, everyone whispering about what would happen. Mrs. Henderson started class without any comments about the talent show. She just launched into the day's lesson about musical notation, but about halfway through class she stopped talking. She stood at the front of the room for a moment, not saying anything. Then she said in a voice that sounded strained, "Before we continue, I want to address something. Many of you attended the talent show on Friday night. I was not able to be there for the performances, but I understand that all of our school's performers did an excellent job representing Lincoln Middle School." She paused and cleared her throat. "I also understand that Amara Johnson's piano performance was particularly well received. I want to acknowledge that her dedication to learning a difficult piece despite physical challenges is commendable. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an admission that she had been wrong, but it was something. It was more than Amara had expected from Mrs. Henderson. "Thank you," Amara said quietly. Mrs. Henderson nodded stiffly and returned to the lesson. The rest of the class exchanged glances, surprised by even this small acknowledgement. After class, Mr. Chen pulled Amara aside. "I have some news. Mrs. Henderson has announced that she'll be retiring at the end of this school year. She says it's time for her to step back and let newer teachers with fresh perspectives take over." "Is that because of what happened?" "Partially. The principal's investigation into her teaching methods found several areas of concern. She was given a choice: undergo extensive retraining and monitoring or retire with dignity. She chose retirement." Amara didn't feel the triumph she thought she would at this news. Instead, she just felt tired. "I didn't want to end her career. I just wanted to play piano." "I know, and what happened to her career wasn't your fault. It was the result of her own choices and actions over many years. You just happened to be the situation that finally brought those patterns to light." A few days later, something unexpected arrived in the mail. It was a letter from a local music foundation that provided scholarships and support for young musicians. They had seen the video of Amara's performance that had gone viral online. They were inviting her to perform at their annual fundraising concert in June. They were also offering her a full scholarship for private piano lessons with a professional teacher for the next 2 years. Amara's mom cried when she read the letter. "Baby, this is amazing. This is the kind of opportunity that could change everything for you. Can we afford it? The letter says lessons, but what about transportation and..." "The scholarship covers everything, including transportation." "Oh, Amara, I'm so happy for you." That night, Amara sat at the piano and played her left-hand piece one more time. But this time, she wasn't practicing for a performance or trying to prove anything. She was just playing because she loved it. Her cast had been off for a month now, and her right arm was almost back to normal. She could have started playing two-handed pieces again, but she wasn't ready to leave this piece behind yet. It had become part of her story, part of who she was. When she finished playing, Jamal came and sat next to her on the piano bench. "Can you teach me how to play piano like that?" he asked. "You want to learn?" "Yeah, you make it look cool. And if I learn piano, maybe I can be on TV like you." Amara laughed. "I wasn't on TV, my video was just online. Same thing, basically."
So will you teach me?
Amara thought about it. She thought about Mrs. Henderson, who had tried to gatekeep music and decide who was worthy of learning. She thought about Ms. Rodriguez and Mr. Chen, who had opened doors instead of closing them. "Yeah," Amara said. "I'll teach you. We'll start with the basics, but you have to promise to practice every day, I promise. This is going to be so cool." As Amara started showing Jamal where to put his hands on the keys, she felt something settle in her chest. It was peace. After all the struggle and hurt and anger, she had found peace. She understood now that Mrs. Henderson's prejudice wasn't really about her. It was about Mrs. Henderson's own limitations, her own fears, her own inability to see beyond her narrow definitions of worth and talent. Amara couldn't fix that or change it. All she could do was keep being herself, keep making music, keep growing. 3 weeks later, on the last day of school, Amara stopped by the music room to clean out her locker. Mrs. Henderson was there, packing up her own belongings. The room was full of boxes. Amara hesitated in the doorway, not sure if she should leave or stay. Mrs. Henderson looked up and saw her. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Mrs. Henderson spoke. "Miss Johnson, come in." Amara walked in slowly. Mrs. Henderson gestured to the boxes. 22 years in this room. It's strange packing it all up. "I'm sorry," Amara said, though she wasn't sure what she was apologizing for. Mrs. Henderson shook her head. "Don't be sorry. This is my doing, not yours." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I watched the recording of your performance. Your mother sent it to the principal and he shared it with the faculty." Amara waited. "You were very good," Mrs. Henderson said, and for the first time, her voice didn't have that edge of condescension. She just sounded tired and maybe a little sad. "You were better than I gave you credit for, and that's on me." It still wasn't a full apology. It still didn't acknowledge the racism or the cruelty, but it was more honest than anything Mrs. Henderson had said before. "Thank you," Amara said simply. Mrs. Henderson nodded and turned back to her boxes. "Good luck with your music, Miss Johnson. I hope you continue to develop your talent." Amara left the music room feeling strange. She didn't have closure exactly. Mrs. Henderson hadn't apologized for everything she had done or admitted why she had really treated Amara the way she had, but maybe that was okay. Maybe Amara didn't need Mrs. Henderson's full confession or approval. Maybe it was enough to know that she had proven herself, not to Mrs. Henderson, but to herself. That summer, Amara performed at the Music Foundation's fundraising concert. She played her left-hand Ravel piece for an audience of donors and music lovers who appreciated the artistry and difficulty of what she was doing. She received a standing ovation, and several people came up afterward to tell her she had a bright future in music. She started taking lessons with a professional pianist named Dr. Kim, a kind older woman who had performed all over the world. Dr. Kim was impressed by Amara's technique and dedication. She started teaching her more advanced pieces, including some two-handed works now that Amara's right arm had fully recovered. But Amara never forgot the left-hand pieces. She continued to practice and perform them, adding them to her regular repertoire. They had taught her something important, that limitations could be transformed into something beautiful if you approached them with creativity and determination. Years later, when Amara was in high school and applying to music conservatories, she wrote her application essay about that 6th grade year. She wrote about breaking her arm, about Mrs. Henderson's prejudice, about Ms. Rodriguez's kindness, about learning to play with one hand. She wrote about how the experience had taught her that being a musician wasn't just about technical skill. It was about resilience, creativity, and the courage to make beauty even when circumstances seemed impossible. Every conservatory she applied to accepted her. They all mentioned her essay in their acceptance letters, talking about how her story demonstrated the kind of passion and perseverance that made great musicians. On the day Amara got her first acceptance letter, her mom hugged her tight and said, "Remember when you were 12 and you thought your life was over because you broke your arm?" "Yeah," Amara said, laughing. "Look at you now. That broken arm was one of the best things that ever happened to you. I don't know if I'd go that far." "I would. It taught you who you really are. It taught you that you can overcome anything, and it gave you a story that will inspire other people who face their own obstacles." Her mom was right. Over the years, Amara received messages from young musicians who had seen her videos or heard her story. Some had physical disabilities. Some had faced discrimination. Some were just struggling with self-doubt. They all told her that her story had given them courage to keep going, to keep pursuing their dreams even when people said they couldn't or shouldn't. And every time Amara received one of those messages, she thought about that 6th grade version of herself, sitting at the piano with a purple cast on her arm, determined to prove Mrs. Henderson wrong. She wished she could go back and tell that scared 12-year-old girl what she knew now, that the obstacle in front of her wasn't really an obstacle at all. It was an opportunity to discover strength she didn't know she had, an opportunity to make something beautiful out of something broken. Because that's what music was really about, wasn't it? Taking broken notes and silence and turning them into something that could move people's hearts, taking pain and struggle and transforming them into art.